So the WNBA has officially brought in a new proposal. Honestly, this was nearly 24 hours ago. I don't know, it was about 18 hours ago. I was going to release this video last night, but I decided to release it today. And they finally did it. They finally brought out the new proposal. And obviously, after the meeting, the players' union knew the league was going to have to give it a
preparation has quietly replaced posturing. Behind the scenes, both sides are acting as if a work stoppage is a real possibility. The league has reportedly brought in consultants who specialize in labor disputes, individuals experienced in navigating strikes, lockouts, and prolonged negotiations. At the same time, the Players Association has begun coordinating logistics related to a potential strike. This is no longer theoretical. These are concrete steps taken when both parties recognize that agreement is far from guaranteed. What separates this situation from similar disputes in other professional leagues is the lack of financial insulation. The WNBA does not possess the massive reserves that allow leagues like the NBA or NFL to withstand missed seasons with minimal long-term damage. A cancelled or shortened season would not simply reduce revenue. It could undermine confidence in the league's stability at the exact moment it has captured mainstream attention. Recent growth has been dramatic. Caitlin Clark's rookie season alone drove viewership increases of up to 300% in certain markets. Attendance surged. Merchandise sales spiked. New fans entered the ecosystem. Yet this surge is still fragile. Much of the new interest is recent, conditional, and untested over time. Interrupting that momentum could permanently alter public perception. There is an irony at play. The money being debated did not meaningfully exist 2 years ago. The league's current visibility is the result of years of investment and patience. Now that returns are finally appearing, disagreement over how to divide them threatens to undo the progress. This is the paradox of growth. Success creates expectations, and expectations create conflict. The league is experiencing both simultaneously, without the infrastructure that older leagues developed gradually over decades. That compression increases risk.
And the reality is that the league wants to offer salaries, the players want to offer rev splits. And from the very start, I've said, because we know the players aren't going to get their rev split, that there has to be a salary number that is high enough for the league to just say, we're accepting this. There is going to be a salary number that's too high to turn down, even without the rev split, even if they want everything. There is going to be a number that's too high.
The shift in tone was immediate and unmistakable. In less than half a minute, confidence gave way to visible uncertainty. What arrived was not merely another proposal in a long series of negotiations, but what many now believe could be the final offer standing between the WNBA and the first work stoppage in its history. The league has never experienced a shutdown, never missed a season because of labor conflict, and yet this moment feels different. What followed the submission of the proposal was not reassurance or clarification, but silence. No press conference. No public statement. No attempt to frame the narrative. Just an absence of response that left observers wondering whether this offer would ultimately save the season or quietly mark the beginning of its collapse. That silence is not accidental. In labor negotiations, silence often signals that both sides understand how fragile the situation has become. Every word matters. Every public comment can shift leverage. At this stage, neither the league nor the Players Association wants to commit to a position that could limit their options later. But the lack of communication also reflects uncertainty. There is no clear sense of whether the proposal is acceptable, unacceptable, or simply insufficient. This is happening against the backdrop of an unprecedented moment for the WNBA. Interest is higher than it has ever been. Television ratings are up. Attendance records have been broken. Media coverage has expanded beyond niche sports platforms into mainstream discussion. For years, supporters argued that the league deserved greater investment, higher salaries, and broader visibility. Now that momentum has arrived, the risk of losing it has never been greater. What makes this moment especially tense is timing. The season calendar does not pause for negotiations. Draft preparations, free agency, training camps, and expansion planning all depend on clarity. Without an agreement, none of those processes can move forward. Every day of uncertainty increases the likelihood of disruption. The league and the union are both aware that this proposal may represent a final attempt to avoid escalation. If it fails, the next step is no longer negotiation, but confrontation. The sudden shift in energy reflects that reality. This is no longer about incremental change or symbolic progress. It is about whether the league can navigate success without fracturing under its own weight.
No. I think that the players are going to counter at some stage. And PA is going to counter, but for me, it all depends on what the PA counters. because there's no way that the league are going to be like, as in, there's no way the league is just going to ignore the next PA, or the PA is going to ignore the league's counter. The league is absolutely preparing for a strike.
Ultimately, this dispute is not just about salaries or percentages. It is about trust, timing, and the fear of repeating history. Women's sports have long been told to wait for sustainability before demanding equity. Now that momentum has arrived, players are unwilling to wait any longer. Owners, meanwhile, fear that accelerating too quickly could jeopardize everything they have built. History suggests that labor disputes rarely end well when pride overtakes pragmatism. The danger is not disagreement, but inflexibility. If both sides remain committed to absolute positions, the season itself becomes collateral damage. The coming weeks will determine whether the WNBA can navigate success without self-sabotage. This moment will define not only the next season, but the league's credibility for years to come. The opportunity is enormous. So is the risk.
70 million training facility. And yeah, that's the thing where it's like, the thing with that is the Fever getting their 70 million training facility is going to be considered an expense for every team. And that's one of those weird things. If it's an expense, it's an expense for every team. Because that's one of those weird things where it's like, teams can afford to be poverty based on the current structure of the new CBA. Because if, for example, the Fever or the Vox or the...
At the heart of this standoff lies a philosophical divide that has been building for years. Players are demanding revenue sharing, a system that would tie their compensation directly to the league's financial growth. The logic is simple: if the league earns more, the players should share proportionally in that success. Ownership, however, is pushing for fixed salaries, including a proposed maximum salary that would approach $1 million regardless of how much revenue flows through the league. Both positions are grounded in rational concerns. Players view revenue sharing as protection against stagnation and a guarantee that they will not be left behind if the league's popularity explodes. Owners view fixed salaries as a safeguard against financial instability, especially in a league that has never consistently turned a profit. The disagreement is not about whether players deserve to be paid more. It is about how risk should be distributed. The proposal submitted by the league arrived quietly, roughly 18 hours before this analysis, with no leaked figures and no official explanation. That in itself is unusual. Typically, major proposals are accompanied by messaging designed to frame public perception. The absence of such messaging suggests either strategic restraint or internal uncertainty about how the offer will be received. Silence in this context is revealing. It suggests that neither side is confident enough to declare progress, but neither is ready to admit failure. Negotiations have reached a point where movement in either direction carries significant consequences. There is also an underlying question that has yet to be answered: has the league already offered a figure that should be impossible to reject, or is it still attempting to preserve leverage by holding back? In every labor dispute, there is a moment when one side believes it has presented its best possible offer. If that moment has arrived, and the offer is rejected, escalation becomes almost inevitable. The stakes extend far beyond this season. The structure of this agreement will define how future growth is shared, how investment decisions are made, and how sustainable the league becomes over the next decade. That is why neither side is willing to compromise easily. What looks like stubbornness is, in reality, a battle over the league's identity.
Where the league goes and says, you know what, we're just going to go and there's a lockout this season. It's like, oh, we can't lose any. You know what, we actually see the way this is going. We can't lose any more. We're going to go and meet your demands with this revenue split. The likelihood of that is zero. That the league, because every bit of marketing, all these new facilities, everything that's being built, these teams are in, every single team is
One of the most controversial aspects of the negotiations centers on how expenses are defined and distributed. A prime example is the Indiana Fever's newly announced $70 million training facility, unveiled during the height of the Caitlin Clark media surge. Under the proposed revenue-sharing model, such investments are categorized as league-wide expenses. That means their cost is deducted from shared revenue before player compensation is calculated. In practical terms, this creates a scenario where a player on one team could see reduced earnings because another franchise chose to invest heavily in infrastructure. The Fever generates significant revenue through ticket sales, merchandise, and national attention, yet the cost of their facility is distributed across all teams. This is where accounting becomes contentious. Owners argue that these investments are essential for long-term growth, player development, and league credibility. Players argue that such accounting practices allow teams to reduce the revenue pool artificially, limiting their share even as the league appears more profitable. The issue extends beyond a single facility. Multiple franchises are building new arenas, expanding staff, and upgrading resources. Each project adds to expenses that reduce gross revenue before sharing occurs. From the owner's perspective, these are necessary steps towards sustainability. From the player's perspective, they are mechanisms that delay fair compensation. Neither side is entirely wrong. The disagreement lies in timing and trust. Players fear that perpetual reinvestment will always be used to justify postponing meaningful revenue sharing. Owners fear that sharing revenue too early could destabilize teams that are still operating at a loss.